It was fine.
But if I don't have,
Okay, it's 7 o'clock on July 9th, and I'm calling the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order. We are missing Tony, but we have a quorum, so we will continue. Okay, let's take a look at the minutes of June 11th, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for June 11th, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion from Mrs. Price.
I second it.
Second by Mr. Cooper. Any corrections or discussion? None? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Okay, motion passed. Okay, moving on to the fund report. Any discussion on the fund reports?
I don't think we have to approve that, do we?
No.
None? Okay. Let's move on to the APV claims recommendation. Can I get a motion to approve the claims recommendation of $101,083.43?
I make a motion to approve the APV transaction list for July, the amount of $101,083.43.
I have a motion from Mr. Snyder. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Price. Any questions or comments?
Chief, what's safety systems? You told me.
It's our equipment that goes on the police vehicles, the lights, sirens, that kind of stuff.
Thanks, I just couldn't
You're welcome.
And then Alyssa, those first two, are those payments at the bottom for Howard? That's for the West Street project, I'm guessing? Is that like
that's for the community. trust,
preliminary
yes.
amount we're gonna give them?
No, we've already given them about 141,000.
Oh, really?
Previously, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this, there might be one more bill coming?
There's one more after our walkthrough.
Yeah, and, yeah.
Any other questions on the report? All those in favor of approving the claims recommendation, $101,083.43, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, motion passes. Okay, take a look at the payroll distribution. Can I get a motion to approve the payroll distribution of $20,112.97?
I make a motion to approve the payroll claims distribution in the amount of $20,112.97.
I have a motion from Mr. Cooney. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Price. Any questions or discussion? None? All in favor? Say aye. Opposed, none, motion passes. Chief Vaughn, you're up.
Thank you. I left a handout on your guys' desk. So yesterday, and I apologize for your stats being late, I took 5 days off last week. So I was a little behind. We sent you a SOP for the flock cameras. And then since then, like 24 hours, we found an addition we needed to add to that. So on the handout that I gave you, it's the highlighted portion. So we have access to flock. Our city clerk treasurer is very good. He's already got everything we need to get that camera up. The problem with the other camera that's in Marion County, and they're talking December maybe, before they get all their permits, but hopefully sooner. I thought that was funny. I said, we'll just move it on the other side of the street and call this back, and let's move this on. So we'll figure that part out. But, so the policy is just to make sure the guys are using the program properly. Flock has 2 classes that they give that we made mandatory for them to watch. One is how the actual system works, so they can get through that. And the other one is like regulation, state laws, stuff like that, to kind of like our IDACs and stuff. So one of the things about flock though that we want to make sure we're on top of is if you have a X something and you put that plate in there, every time that car gets pinged, you can follow. So what we want to make sure is it's law enforcement only and that all that. So that's why the policy was done. I know we talked yesterday. We don't have to approve it tonight if you guys want to read it over a little longer. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and enact this one now for that month, and then any changes that you make, we'll give out the revised SOP.
Okay, so are you saying we're gonna vote on this?
That is totally up to you. If you guys had enough time to read it and go over it and you'd like to, that's fine. But like I said, knowing that I only give you 24 hours, I don't expect you guys to
Tony, have
have
you
read
seen
everything.
this?
I have not read through it.
Well, do you want to take a few minutes to read?
Yeah, why don't you just take a few minutes to look over it, so we can get it done.
That's fine, however you want to do it.
And while we're at it, let me get a motion to approve the block camera procedures SOP 3.42.
I'll second the motion.
I need it first.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
I'll make
First and second?
the motion that we
Okay.
approve the block cameras.
Okay, motion by Price, I need a second by Cooney. And now you can read it and ask any questions. Let me know when you're done. We good?
So, yeah, the only question that I had was the highlighted part there. I'm trying to understand what that for traffic enforcement is. Unless an additional verification such as running a plate or confirming a suspended driver is made.
CAD system.
Made through the CAD system prior to make. What's the CAD
So
system?
the CAD system's the computers in the cars. So when Flock picks up a suspended driver, that is, he or she is registered to that vehicle. Where you run into problems is if you're married and the wife's valid and you're suspended, car's still going to say the driver, the owner of that vehicle is suspended. So what we're telling them is you have to take that, run it under that name to make sure that one, they are suspended, and two, be able to verify that it's the male driving, not the female, and then you can initiate the traffic stop. So just because it says this car is suspended, license, it could be son driving it, whatever. When they run the information, the picture, your B&V picture pops up.
Right,
So-
okay, so once it runs the individual's
You can
license who's
verify.
driving, then although the vehicle might show up as suspended,
When they
the
run
person was not.
Yeah, when they run the plate, so they'll get this plate suspended, they'll run that plate, it'll say, Tom and Jane own the car. And then you'll run those names to figure out, like if the male's suspended, if the female's driving, you don't have an offense then because she's legally driving the vehicle.
Gotcha.
So it's just kind of a plain hit for us, and then we have to do a little research before. You know, you just want to start stopping cars. So that's why that's put in there, so that if they get the hit, the owner's suspended and they pull it over, but there's two owners of the vehicle, then you stop somebody for no reason.
So that could
You
be
know.
trouble for the spouse that's not suspended. She's constantly being, or he
Right.
being pulled over.
Yeah, and especially if you live around here, we hit on Flock every day, and you get pulled over because we have an officer working every day, a different officer. Yeah, you can be stopped 5 days in a row. That'd be a little.
That'll be fun, right?
So that's why we added that in there, just to make it a little more, do a little more investigation work before you just stop the car.
Right. And then it looks like 3 about the authorized use, basically trying to spell out, these are the authorized uses.
Yeah.
This is not to be used to profile people
Right.
because of race or
Right.
ethnicity or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
questions? All those in favor of approving the flock camera procedures, SOP 3.42, say aye. Aye. Opposed, none, motion passed.
Thank you. So last month, we looked at 2 parking ordinances. One was parking restrictions, which was passed. There was no issues there. The other was no parking restrictions. And either during or after the meeting, I can't remember which, there was some questions brought up about that ordinance. So I tabled it at the council meeting and are bringing it back tonight. If you remember, we're only talking about number 18. You guys still have those on your computers? So basically, let me get this one. So the one you guys passed is there's no parking on the lawn except for the purpose of loading, unloading, or washing the vehicle. So that's the ordinance that was passed, and it's currently the ordinance. 18 now, with a little revision, it says on the lawn except for the purpose of loading, unloading, or washing the vehicle. Exceptions will be made for cars temporarily parked in yard for purpose of family gatherings or social events. One of the things I'll tell you about our ordinances, we have a code enforcement officer that enforces most of those ordinances, tall grass, that kind of stuff. Our officers that are patrolling, that's not something they do on a regular basis. If they get a phone call or a dispatch run or something like that that says, hey, there's 50 cars parked on the grass and they're blocking the sidewalk, then they go over there to handle that issue. 99% of the time, they knock on the door and try to take care of the problem instead of writing 50 tickets, okay? The more we add into that, the more convoluted it gets for the officer to try to figure out, okay, is a family gathering 3 people, 6 people, 12 people, 15 people? What is that? So like the way it was written first, it's clean. There's no parking on the grass. If the officer gets there, knocks on the door, and they say, sorry, our kids came from Colorado for the weekend, and that was the only place we had, then we're going to move on. That's not what the ordinance is intended to do.
It would be more the spirit of the law.
Yes, yeah. So I know that was a big issue. I know there's another one. We have a resident who has a single driveway that's kind of long, but has kids that drive now. And instead of playing musical cars, they park over there. That's not something we're going to drive by and go, oh, let's go stop and write that ticket. It's nothing that we would deal with unless, again, we were dispatched to it. That would get the officers over there to address that. And again, simple, we're playing musical cars, we park them over there. Knowing our officers as well as I do, I don't see that, them writing a ticket for that. They might say, there's an ordinance that you can't park on the grass, you might look at getting some gravel or something like that and moving on, but that's nothing like we would take a tow and do all that kind of stuff for.
Okay.
So, talking to the council, I told them I'd bring it back, see what you guys wanted to do with that, have a discussion or not, or whatever.
Do we want a motion to approve it as stands without change, and vote on that?
Every time we keep amending it, keep changing it, we're just moving the fence farther.
Right, so I say if we leave it the way it is now, we'll make a motion.
You wouldn't have to do
No,
anything.
don't have to do
Leave
anything.
it as the way it is.
Okay.
I like his explanation.
Yes?
I feel comfortable with how the police department would handle the exception.
Okay, then we don't have to do anything.
Assuming you guys agree.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Well, I guess knowing that we've got a population, a growing population in the city who does have large family gatherings, who will be parking for those family gatherings on the lawn, I would feel more comfortable adding that addition. I do understand what you're saying, Chief, but if there's ever a question where, somebody tickets them for doing exactly what that addition says, if it's in there, then that resident can say, but it's in the statute.
Right, and like I said, the officer, 99% of the time, is not going to just write a ticket. They're going to have that conversation with them, and then say, if you go to the city's website, go under clerk treasurer code, it's in there, give them the number so that they can find it. Some of them will even print them out on the e-ticket printer for like their tickets, so they can just hand them the ordinance and just say, hey, can you put them on the street for me now? And then just remember that in any, future thing that you have. Again, the ordinance was changed for the ones that we've got them parked in the yard, working on them. We have a couple houses around here, it looks like a used car lot. So it's to give us the tools to be able to keep the city clean, but again, not to go out there and, oh, look, we're parked on the grass now, I'm gonna start writing tickets and make that. And if you look at, and we can probably get that for you, a breakdown of our tickets that we write a year, how many of those tickets are ordinance violations? If I had to guess right now, I would say under 10, wouldn't you? So our ordinance like that, like your code enforcement knows, they all go to Alyssa. They have 60 days to come in and either pay the $75 or ask for a court date, and then it'll go to Beach Grove Court and they can argue with the judge about it. There's many times where they'll come in where they've gotten a ticket for, I think the last one I think of was the firewood piled up or the junk piled up next to the garage. They were issued a ticket, came in, said they didn't know it was an ordinance. I gave them 10 days or something to clean it up, went back by, it was cleaned up, we voided the ticket. So on the city ordinances like those, we work with the community. We're not trying to make money off of them, right? We're just trying to make the city look clean and where everybody wants to live. So the only thing I would say is the more you add to those, again, you're asking the officer to make a determination, is this a family event or is it?
All right, yeah, I can see what you're saying.
And then, some of our population, when someone dies, they do a 7-day mourning session. And so you got 7 days of 50 cars parked on the grass. Well, that would be considered, if you had that extra part in, it'd be a gathering. So for 7 days, you're gonna have cars driving over the sidewalk, parked in the yards and all that kind of stuff. So that would be my only thing with changing it.
I think we're all good with just leaving it as is. Am I right? You're good?
Okay.
Dale, you're good?
So my neighbors can't park in their yard?
They will not be able to park in their yard. We'll have to get them some gravel.
It's a shame. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we had the 4th of July. It was a nice week. We got a ton of complaints. So every month we meet, we have an ordinance committee. We meet and look at the ordinances, and if we have issues coming in, we look at that ordinance and see. If you look up our noise ordinance, it even has steam whistles and, what was that one? Yeah. It's a very old ordinance. But if you look at it, it's broken down in certain areas, like it'll say construction, it'll say loud music, it'll say loud voices, and it's
Photographs.
photographs. Can I photographs loud?
Hawkers and peddlers.
That's what it was, hawkers and peddlers. So it's in need of being done. So we met Tuesday, and noise ordinance made it to the top of that list after 4th of July and all that. We looked for quite a while to find an ordinance for fireworks, and I don't think we found it in 15 minutes of looking for it. So that is also going to be in the noise ordinance. We have a resident here off of Market Street who has a nice bag of 1.5 pounds of fireworks that were found in her yard. So, again, it's the 4th of July, we got to let fireworks, I get that. I'm patriotic as anybody in here, but I do think we need to look at what we're shooting off and how close we are to houses. Diane came in earlier this week and we had a talk. Tuesday. And we had, looking at, kind of like we did the burn ordinance, her neighbor fired them off right at the property line.
Well, and they fired them at my houses. It was directed over our houses.
Nice.
Yeah. So, looking at that, some suggestions on, do we put a distance, kind of like we did the chicken coops, they can't be within 25 feet of the neighbors, something like that. And then, of course, like cleaning up trash. Diane has a couple things to say, short to the point.
As I promised.
She has a whole list of, she did a bunch of research, So if we give her a few minutes, I would
Okay.
appreciate it.
So anyway, I've been in Southport for 66 years. My family moved here in 1940. And so, you know, I get it that people want to do their fireworks, but these people behind me, I mean, they did it out of spite. She hates all of the neighbors. She yells and screams because the kids play and have fun next door here, and they scream at their dog because it barks outside. And so they put their fireworks 2 feet off my property line. When their property is as big as mine, and they could have put it anywhere they wanted, they set it 2 feet off my property line and blew them at my house. My husband and I sat on our back porch and watched firing embers come into my yard, come onto our roofs. And then for the last 6 days, since the 5th, starting on the 5th, I've gone through my yard picking up things like this, mostly of which where my dog runs and plays. A lot of these. 1.5 pounds of this stuff. This hit my car. I found one of these in the front of my yard that's 166 feet from where they were shooting them off. So I know they were angled this way.
Sure.
So, you know, what happens when my dog has to go to the hospital for emergency room for this? I don't think this kind of stuff should be happening. And I know a lot of them were illegal, in the 80s or whatever. This kind of stuff, hitting our cars, hitting our houses. You know, my dog had this in her mouth last night after my husband walked her in our yard. My hands were covered in gunpowder
Oh, yeah.
after I picked it up for 5 days in my yard, all through my yard, from my backyard line to the front street. So I did some research on chemistry compounds of fireworks. And this is just something you want to think about when you have your neighbors throwing off fireworks at your house and where you've got a dog, or your grandkids have a dog. Aluminum, barium, carbon, calcium.
That's how you know what color the fireworks.
That's right. Oh, yeah, all kinds
You already see
of
'em.
chlorine, copper, iron, potassium, lithium, magnesium, sodium, oxygen,
Well, she does
phosphorus,
That,
She promised me she'd keep it delicious.
sulfur, antimony, strontium, never even heard of some of these, titanium and zinc. They're toxic to dogs. They can kill them. And my dog hasn't eaten for 2 days. So I think there needs to be more consideration as far as, because you have no control over these people bringing in illegal. And what they had, and it wasn't off from where they were, it wasn't 18 feet to our shed where we have our gas for the mowers,
oh, sure.
all kinds of stuff. So any part of that I got fire hole burns in my grass where it came in my yard. So, you know, no one has any control over the crazy people that decide they want to blow fireworks, the kind of fireworks they're blowing off. And I just think there needs to be a lot more consideration than what the hell I've lived for the last 6 days. You know, because no one should have to go through what I went through. And I just think it needs to be considered as far as an ordinance or something like that. No more. You know, a firework, that's one thing. But this kind of stuff that can kill my dog or your dog, things need to be different.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, so, like I said, we're addressing those now. We're looking at some other ordinances. Since we don't have an ordinance that we can find, we go off of Marion counties, of course. In Marion County, you can shoot them off like 5 days before 4th of July and like 4 days after. And then I think there's 4 dates: Memorial, Labor Day, 4th of July, and New Year's. So looking at how we can kind of contain it more, or only having them on that one day, and then the time that we do it. Unfortunately, we're not fireworks experts, so if they're firing off something illegal, I can tell if it's illegal or not. Pyro next to me probably could. But we need to look at that kind of stuff. I know about 4 or 5 years ago, you used to have to sign a thing saying you're not firing them off in residential areas and all that, and I know the city got rid of that. Marion County got rid of that, because at one point they had to be fired off in designated areas.
Right.
I don't know if that's something we look at. I don't know the right answer yet, but I'm asking for your guys' input on some of that we can bring to the ordinance board and have those discussions. Let's see.
Yeah, it used to be, you wasn't allowed to light off commercial grade
Right,
fireworks in a residential area.
yeah, and they say they've got rid of all that. I mean, when they go to the cameras off.
They waxed it up big time
Yeah,
over the past few years. But there again, I mean, it's another one of those things where, we're incorporated city within Marion County, so then you got the guys around saying, but I'm in Marion County.
yeah.
So it is a hard sell.
Did you know Travis Kelce's bodyguards must strictly...
Sorry.
Believe me, I feel your plight because I've had to give my dog Xanax and everything like that. So.
And that's just in the PTSD people.
Yeah.
The vets that live
It's just-
on our streets and in our neighborhoods. It just,
You know what?
and I looked up Indy.gov before I came down here. And it specifically said, and some of these, I swear, when I'm doing the research, it looks like an M80. And it said, they're illegal. They're illegal in Indiana. And that if I believe one is being shot off, I should call ATF. And so I did. And they referred me to the fire chief to take some of this stuff to and see if he can tell me what it is. I just.
And then how do you enforce it after that? I mean, it's
And that,
shot.
and Brenda and I talked for a while, and,
Yeah, where did it come from? That's
Yeah, but then you become neighborhood wars.
yeah.
Because the thing is, why we didn't call the police that night is because they were all drunk.
Well,
And we were afraid if the police showed up, they're gonna burn our house down when we're not there.
right.
So it's like, we're kind of in a catch-22, and I can't be the only neighbor in Southport that has these issues with the crazies around them.
And one of the other issues we had on her incident was they decided to put a speaker in their garage facing their house and blast the music, and then got drunk, passed out, so the music was going on till close to 1 a.m.
1:30.
Okay, 1:30. So that's an
Well,
issue.
that would be in the current noise ordinance.
Yes, we can,
I think so.
if we can make them up.
So the thing is, and Diana, the thing that's at the heart of it is just respect, one neighbor respecting another, and we can legislate, and we're gonna try to come up with the best thing that we can, but really it comes down to common respect for each other. If neighbors can't get along, there's all kinds of stupid things can
I
happen
can't
like
tell you
this.
all we've done to
Like
these,
this.
we've done for these people.
Yeah.
We've done a bunch of things for these people. We even rented to a friend of theirs who quit paying us rent in February. And so that was why we got the retribution we did.
No good deed goes unpunished, right?
So, but at the same time, some of this stuff, I don't know. They're chemicals, they polluted my yard with chemicals and garbage. Dangerous.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And they certainly can't come and clean up the spot because, it's 40 feet wide and 161 feet long.
Right.
So how do you do that? They get their little sweeper out and they sweep around their hole. But, other than that, they watch me every day this week walk from one end of this yard to the other multiple times, picking up this so that my dog doesn't die.
Yep, I know. So we're going to try to come up with the best.
Come up with
No,
something.
There's nothing, no
I just
law
have to start the process.
that can change a person's.
The process just needs to start.
Absolutely, so that there's something to enforce.
And one of the things that we do have to keep in mind,
We shoot off.
Labor Day.
Labor Day is the next holiday, so let's get it in effect on
Yeah,
Labor Day.
well, for the 4th of July, there's actually an Indiana law already that says from June 29th through July 9th, you're allowed to fire off fireworks from 5 p.m. until 2 hours after sunset. So, again, I don't know how much we're going to be able to change of being able to do it, but can we make it safer? I mean, 167 feet, you can shoot that off anywhere in your yard, it's going to end up somewhere else. So I think that's a lot of things that we need. And I know you had some suggestions, so if you want to email them to me or something like that, when I go to the meetings, I'll bring those up. And then see if we can come up with something better. Like I said, it's 4th of July, you know, it's patriotic, you're supporting our country, I agree with all that. But again, kind of like what Tony was saying, you got to care about your neighbor. And maybe we ought to have a class in that in Southport, because it's been a thing the last couple months. So,
Okay.
so there's that. So yeah, if you guys kind of brainstorm, send me some ideas and stuff, or the mayor, DC, or Tony's on the board, the committee too.
Okay.
Send us that and see if we can get something, yeah, like I said, for Labor Day.
Okay.
And then we'll do some more research to see if we can't limit it to July 4th and New Year's. Because New Year's is still 1 a.m. because New Year's is midnight. Good thing about Indiana is hopefully it's 20 below and they don't want to spend 3 hours outside firing off fireworks. All right, we've got the 2 new Durangos actually in service. They've both been back to the dealer already once. One had all the lights on, dash lights on, and the other one, the back window didn't roll down. So, and this is the last year they're making Durangos.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad we got in there.
Yes.
Glad we got in there just in
Yeah,
time.
so I don't know what we're doing next
Yeah.
year, but, so we put out a thing to hire more reserve police officers. And I want you to hear these numbers, because I know you hear me complaining about a lot. So for laterals, which has experience, we can put them straight to FTO, do that kind of stuff. We had 15 apply. We have 7 confirmed on interviews, so we're about half. On non-law enforcement, come in fresh, academy and all that, we had 80 applications, and we only had 10 reply, or 10 went to, scheduled to go to the physical agility test.
How many?
10 out of 80. And then we had a guy call and asked if he had, what was it, 4 suspensions, something.
No, I was looking at like, he's currently facing some misdemeanors and stuff.
And wonder if that disqualified him from the application process. So we have those scheduled. I know the chairman is going to work with the board to get us 2.
Right, it'll
To
be one
sit on
of
those?
these 2.
Okay. To sit on those boards with us. So I appreciate that. Body cameras, we got them in today. We're still waiting on them to call us and tell us how they work and how to set it up. So hopefully next week or 2, we'll have the new body cameras out and rolling. And that's all I have for police, unless there's something else. Any questions? All right, on Public Works, we had a large tree branch fall in the park, so Bryce and Bob spent a week cutting it up and taking it to Green Cycle. Green Cycle for that. We had our pre-con meeting on the parking lot, which went very well.
Yeah.
They want to start a little early, working towards the north end to do some of that stormwater, which shouldn't affect any of your rentals or parking up there, so we told them they could do that. I forgot you were in there, never mind. Is there anything I'm missing on the pre-con meeting?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
That was
Okay.
really the only thing that was an exception.
We have a stormwater manhole, which really doesn't have anything to do with this board, but I'll tell you about it anyway. It's in the sidewalk in the driveway of 2402, and it's sticking up about 2 inches where people are tripping. We tried to pawn it off on citizens. They quickly said it was stormwater and that's ours. So Crossroads is trying to get us a quote to get that fixed so that I can bring it to the stormwater board in 2 weeks, week and a half. We had a sinkhole on 2nd Street in Southport, right there where the new apartments are. That was citizens. They agreed to fix that one. And if you haven't been by there today, they're actually paving Second Street and got the parking lot half done over there, so it looks pretty good. Somebody doesn't like the welcome to Southport sign on Crossgate, they ran it over. So we're repairing that.
Cut across.
July 15th, we have a meeting with the people with the NIP grant. The NIP grant's the one we're using with the City of Indianapolis to do the crosswalk on Derbyshire and Southport Road. So it sounds like we're moving forward on that, so that'll be good. And that's all I got. Any questions?
Well, we're doing the walkthrough.
Yes, oh yeah, we're doing the walkthrough
Monday.
Monday at 2 p.m. for the 2024
2 p.m.
community crossing grant.
They'll like the final.
Dorothy's not happy with the manhole.
I'm not happy, that's a sloppy job.
West Street, Main Street, Combs,
Homes got it.
And the alley.
and the alleys on West Street. Any other questions?
The limb hanging,
Bob's working on that, yeah. he'll be
Thank
working
you.
on that.
I think that's it.
That's all I have then.
All right. How about permits? Alyssa,
I'm sorry.
you're up. Permit status report, anything?
Oh, we have a lot. We have the new builds. Where's that? Church Street?
Church and
Church
Market.
and Market. A few groups going around. The house that's at Southport and Pine, they're getting ready to build a garage on there, and they do get permits, so you'll see that coming up here soon.
That house sold too, didn't it?
I still see the sign, I have no idea, I don't know. I mean, the guy that owns it came in today to get a permit,
I
so.
have a reliable source that said 279,
Oh, I have no idea.
So we do have
whatever that means.
the permit on Market Street. We've had some issues with that. Well, we don't really have any issues with that. She might, but,
I mean, the toilet.
so we had a former BZA and I guess new RDC member doesn't like the vertical siding. There were some things, I guess, in the original split that were supposed to be done that weren't recorded properly. So they came out and put a stop work order on the house. I spoke with the mayor got on the phone, the city of Indianapolis, who still hasn't called us back. But we pretty much said to continue working on the house. And when Indianapolis shows up, we'll deal with Indianapolis at that point in time. So in case you hear about that one, that's probably the most pain in the butt one right now. But yeah, so that's where we're at on that one.
Okay, got it for that. Any comments from the audience? You get 3 minutes.
Okay. I will take 3 minutes. On the Market Street house, you know, luckily they did put the toilet off the sidewalk. But what, we see a lot of kids having to go into the street to ride their bikes and to walk and things like that. You know, even by get those orange cones out of the way and put some gravel where they tore out the sidewalk.
They should be
Put some
starting.
gravel there.
That was, so there were a couple of problems with that. Citizens.
I understand, gravel won't slow anyone down, but would at least protect people walking their dogs, kids riding their bikes. You know, I see a lot of little kids on bikes, and there's a car that parks in the street and on the grass just north of there.
Yeah.
And so it's all this kind of, oh, you gotta go over here, and oh, you gotta go over there. And it really worries me when I see these little kids, you know, they're not with their parents, and they're on their bikes, and they have to go out into the street.
No, yeah, and like I said, Bob, the one who's building it, he's very easy to work with. He's easy for me to work with. And anytime we have an issue, we talk to him about it.
Correct.
The one was, citizens actually delayed it by 6 weeks.
I
If
understand.
they would have done what they were supposed to do the first time, and we actually got a supervisor down there who wasn't happy with his own employees, so he dealt with that.
Right.
So that should be getting filled and taken care of. And then spring, we're repaving that entire street anyway.
We don't have to walk by the toilet anymore.
Yes, no, it'll be gone. So, there you go.
All right. Any other comments? Carol?
So, on the apartments,
Yep.
do you know about that white part? I thought they were gonna paint that white part.
I don't know anything, no, that would be the RDC.
Okay.
on that.
I can answer that
know.
question.
Heather can answer for you.
Okay.
Go ahead,
You
Heather.
wanna-
So, we met with Shelby Bowen, who is from Rebar Construction. As an RDC, we met with him and expressed things that we were concerned about. One of the things that we brought up was painting that. He seemed agreeable to it being painted a more neutral color, so it's not such a stark contrast to the rest of the building. We gave him several things that we wanted him to get back to us about, and we have not heard back from him. But I was giving him a little bit of extra time because we met with him right before the 4th of July, or heading into that holiday, and with it being summer and things like that. But that was one of the concerns that we brought up.
And it might take him a while to
Came
schedule
to that
that.
meeting.
Yeah.
And when are people moving in? Do you have any idea?
July 15th. I believe they have 9 people scheduled to move in July 15th.
Better hurry up.
So,
Anything else from anyone?
Wouldn't just leaving that firework trash in someone's yard just be a ticket for littering?
I asked that.
But how do you know who it came from?
Can you record it?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about that a little bit when Diane came in. The problem is the neighbor she's talking about, we being EC and I, spent 3 hours explaining to them you can't yell at your neighbor's kids for being loud. Yeah.
I appreciate your help on
Yeah.
that, but yeah.
Oh, no, you know about that one, yeah. So, we'll look at it and see. I mean, if you can sit there and say, yeah, I saw them shooting them off, we can see what we can do with it.
Well, even our tenants.
Yeah. She hasn't even seen it yet.
I prefer to use the walls out of there versus more. I'm not
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the problem is every 4th we get it, and again, we got one officer out usually, so running around, it gets them. And again, I don't know if you can tell whether they're legal or not. But yeah, we had something to look into.
All right.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? All right, it is 7:42. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Mr. Cooper. Can I get a second? Adjourned.